It's super important to note that we are taking so much land and having to clear the land either to graze cattle or to grow food for the cattle. So not only are meat eaters responsible for the intentional deaths of farmed animals, but they're also responsible for all the deaths of the wildlife that had to be cleared for those pastures. These facts are out there. I remember the first time I learned about them was in a documentary called Cowspiracy.
I still haven't seen that one.
It's a great film, guys. If you really want to like go deep into this and start to understand this, that was the first step that I took and started learning about it. But I think it's important to note that now we're seeing a big pushback from the animal agriculture industry, and they've actually introduced a lot of greenwashing tactics to make consumers feel better about their urge to eat animals.
Yeah.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture is quite literally introducing quote unquote climate friendly beef certifications, and it's
crazy.
It's a program, and it's a program which allows companies like Tyson to market a burger made from cow flesh as a planet friendly option, even if the products still have a higher than average emission. Have you heard the term regenerative agriculture?
I have.
That's another term that environmentalists like to use a lot. So when I was actually at that climate protest, a lot of people were saying to me, I only buy local, I only buy from regeneratively raised farms.
But what does that mean? What does it mean exactly? I've heard the term.
Yes.
But I obviously am so far removed from that. I don't really know what it means.
Yes. So it's a term that's been debunked many times over and over again. It was introduced by there was a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. There was also a term by Alan Savory. And what it means is it's a method of farming that aims to try and work like with the environment and with the animals to mimic nature. So back in the day, you had lots of different predators and you had lots of different animals that would coexist. And surely they would eat the grass or eat some of the vegetation, and then they would die, and then their bodies would be decomposed into the soil. And so the method of farming is trying to help soil health, and they use a term called carbon sequestering. So they're saying that by this method of regenerative agriculture, that you can farm animals in a sustainable way that lowers carbon emissions.
Okay.
However, it has been debunked many times, and one of the main problems with this is that this is not a system that is suitable to feed a planet of meat eaters. It's impossible. We actually don't have enough land on planet Earth to have everybody eating grass-fed meat.
Just stop it. Stop it.
The best thing would be an alternative to regenerative agriculture is if we allowed forests to rewild. If we cut that land and only had part of that land used for growing vegetables or beans, legumes, peas, and then took a lot more of that land to rewild it and allow wildlife to come back and allow, if we want to talk about carbon sequestering, that's the best thing we could do for the environment.
We're not solving anything.
Right. And part of the reason why is because we have the beef industry and animal agriculture pushing back and confusing the public.
Right.
So there's this new program called Masters of Beef Advocacy.
And
it's where they actually hire an army of influencers to and activists to help amplify their message. So they'll actually go in, they'll use TikTok influencers to help increase sales. They'll go in and they have a program where they teach people all of this misinformation. Quite literally, and they make it so that if they see something online or some type of big media against the beef industry, they are able to snap back real quick.
So scary.
They're genetically modifying cows to produce less methane now, and that's their new selling point and tactic.
How?
They've I guess bred them over time to create a cow that does not emit as much methane, which is...
And I'm sure people are like, oh, it's okay. I eat cows that were modified to not burp as much. I'm like,
no.
Are you listening to this?
And then when you ask them where they went for dinner last night, they're like, oh, McDonald's.
Yeah, I went to In-N-Out. My favorite spot. It's like, ew, I've never been to In-N-Out. Thank God. No, I'm proud of that.
I've been, but I don't recommend.
No. Gross.
And so, you know, currently this technology, it's working. They're getting billions, I want to say, in funds, and they're getting so much money and support on these new cows, when the fact of the matter is, it's like the most sustainable thing that we can do is to not eat animals at all and to just switch to plants.
Right.
However, one of the comebacks to this would be that in order to scale this, you know, to scale this production of methane reducing cows, that it's not proven that that can work. It's not proven that that can actually be effective across the globe, and it still doesn't talk about the other impacts that are still damaging to the environment, you know, from the resources used with the cows. And so it's like, okay, you might be helping in one area, but then there's still all these other issues that exist. And so we could just get rid of this whole problem.
Right. It's like what I said. It's like we're coming up with solutions that are not resolving the issue. It's insane. And I'm sure that it's probably costing a lot of money. Okay.
So all of this being said, even if there was some idyllic world where cows could produce less methane and, you know, chickens also are an issue, and hog waste and all these other things, even if there was an idyllic world, their impact would still be greater than a plant-based diet. And we can't really call them climate saviors because they're not.